In the middle of the night, a couple parks their car near the forest. Cameron pulls a body and a shovel out of the trunk, then he starts digging a grave while his wife Janice keeps watch. By the time they're done, the sun is out. Cameron reminds a nervous Janice that it was an accident and that he asked their victim not to scream. Sometime later in California, Colleen is hitchhiking by the road. After several cars ignore her, she's finally picked up by Cameron and Janice. They chat during the trip and Colleen shares that she's come from Oregon for a friend's birthday. It's a surprise though, so her friend doesn't know she's visiting. When they stop at a gas station, Colleen goes to the bathroom while Cameron grabs a wooden box from the trunk. Colleen notices the box in the backseat when she returns but doesn't comment on it. Once they return to the road, Cameron mentions that there are some ice caves nearby and says they should check them out. The car goes off the road and Janice explains they must walk the rest of the way to the caves. As soon as Colleen turns around, Cameron captures her from behind, threatening her with a knife. He then pushes her against the car to handcuff her, blindfold her, and gag her. Next he makes her sit in the car again and ties her legs before forcing her to put her head inside the box. After Cameron covers her body with a blanket, they take off. When they finally reach the couple's home, Cameron reminds Colleen to do what he says before taking her to the basement. He makes her stand on a box, chains her to the ceiling, and rips off her clothes. Then he kicks the box, leaving her hanging. After calling Janice to make her watch, Cameron proceeds to whip Colleen's back several times. This gets him in such a mood that he gets naughty with Janice right next to Colleen. Once he's done, he chains Colleen to a table and puts her head back in the box. Cameron turns off the lights before leaving the basement, and Colleen spends most of the night crying and wondering why this is happening to her. The next day, Janice expresses her concerns about Colleen. Cameron says he only wants to keep her for a few days and that he'll drop her off out of town. He isn't worried about the police because Colleen doesn't know who they are or where she is. After Cameron leaves for work, Janice tries to pray but she keeps hearing Colleen crying. She grabs a gun before going to the basement, where she opens the box and asks Colleen what she wants. Colleen begs her to let her go home and swears she won't tell anybody. When Janice asks her if she knows where she is, Colleen guesses she's somewhere near Red Bluff, which makes Janice worry even more. In the evening, Cameron comes home and ignores Janice to go straight to the basement, where he tells Colleen that he'll cut her vocal cords if she screams. Then he takes her out of the box and removes the gag so she can drink water. When he tells her to pee in a bedpan, Colleen says she can't do it if he watches, so Cameron pretends he turns around. Afterward, Cameron forces Colleen to eat some bread even though she isn't hungry. When she asks why he's doing this, he answers that it's because he can. Then the whipping begins once more. Upstairs, Janice listens to music to avoid hearing Colleen's screams. Later in bed, Janice admits to Cameron that she's scared of Colleen going to the police. However, Cameron decides they must keep Colleen, which makes Janice very uncomfortable. To comfort her, Cameron points out that by keeping Colleen, he won't hit Janice anymore, and they can start a family. Janice likes the idea but still makes Cameron promise that he'll never get naughty with Colleen. Sometime later, Colleen hears Cameron building something in the basement. Then he puts her in new chains and takes her to his finished project, a wooden box big enough to put her entire body inside. Colleen freaks out and pounds on the lid, but Cameron has locked it. He also turns on an air purifier that he's connected to the box so she can breathe. That night, Colleen tries to calm herself down by pretending she's back home. However, her mind is flooded with memories of her kidnapping and an argument with her father, who hadn't wanted her to travel to California alone. A few days later, Colleen's landlord calls her parents because her rent is due and she isn't answering the phone. The parents haven't heard from her either, so they decide to go to the police. An officer takes their report but points out that Colleen is an adult, so unless there's evidence of a crime she's free to disappear. 6 months later, Janice visits Cameron at work and tells him she's pregnant, but he doesn't look very happy about it. Janice thinks it's time to get rid of Colleen. However, Cameron refuses and reminds her of the risk of Colleen going to the police. Almost 8 months after the abduction, the landlord notices the couple coming home and Janice using crutches. Cameron says she's fine and it's only arthritis. Then the landlord reminds the couple that he must service the basement furnace, so Cameron promises to let him know when it's convenient. The couple enters their home and Janice complains about her leg injury, saying it feels like they hit her with a hammer. This gives Cameron an idea, so he checks his dirty magazines to get a copy of a slave contract. He takes the magazine to Colleen and claims that he works for the company that wrote that article, so they know she's in his basement. This company provides security, so if a slave of his tries to escape, they'll track them down for him. There's nothing they won't do to catch a runaway slave, even punish their families. Then Cameron pulls out a picture of Colleen and her sister and mentions her parents' address as an indirect threat. He also claims that Janice has an injured leg because she used to be a slave. Her previous master mistreated her, so she tried to run away, only to be caught by the company. They hung her up and twisted her leg really badly. The company would have killed her if Cameron hadn't bought her and eventually made her his wife. All these stories are lies, but Colleen is afraid and vulnerable, so she believes them. Cameron explains that he has to register Colleen as his new slave, which will cost him $1,500. If he doesn't pay, the company will take Colleen away and do terrible things to her. A terrified Colleen signs the contract and has a breakdown. Afterward, Cameron takes Colleen upstairs. He gives her a gown and puts a collar around her neck, saying it's the company identification. Then he establishes a few rules. She'll only be called Kay, she must address Cameron as master and Janice as madam, and she must treat them both with absolute respect. That means she can only speak when spoken to, and she must submit to everything they say. Whenever Cameron shouts attention, Colleen must stop whatever she's doing and run to the living room arch, where she must remove her gown and stand with her head bowed, fingers reaching for the ceiling. To test her understanding of the new rules, Cameron says attention and Colleen runs to the arch, following the instructions perfectly. He then starts touching her, but is interrupted by Janice. Seeing her jealousy, he claims he's only doing some training. He makes Colleen get dressed and sends her to scrub the floor. While working, Colleen finds a Bible, but Janice immediately takes it from her. When Colleen asks her if she's a Christian, Janice reminds her she has no value and that she's only there to take the pain. Then she kicks the dirty bucket to make her clean the floor again. Sometime later, the landlord wonders if everything is okay because the windows are always covered, so Cameron says it keeps the house cool. When the landlord reminds him that he must check the furnace, Cameron tells him he's too busy right now. Inside, Cameron informs Janice that it's time to move. Months later, in a new house in the countryside, Janice gives birth while Colleen hears everything from the box. Cameron lets her out when it's finally over and even allows her to hold the baby girl. Almost 2 years after the abduction, Janice keeps complaining about everything Colleen does and says that the company should take her away. When Colleen forgets to set a fork for Janice, Cameron whips her to punish her. Janice finds the fork on the floor, but instead of mentioning it, she hides and prays. Later, while Colleen is dealing with the laundry, Cameron says that he went to a company party and heard an interesting story. A slave managed to escape her master's home and made it to town, where he asked the police for help. However, the cop was part of the company too, so he punished her by making a surgeon cut off her legs, arms, and tongue. They also used a soldering gun to take out her eyes and ears, and braided her hair to hang her next to her master's bed. She was fed through a tube and it took her a year to die. Cameron is making up these stories so Colleen will be too afraid to escape and tells her that she's lucky she got him. Sometime later, Cameron takes off Colleen's collar and brings her to work with him. He tells her that the other men are also slave owners, so she mustn't call him master in front of them or they may want to borrow her. While Cameron chops wood, Colleen picks up the pieces. She notices he looks different, so he explains he likes it here because he has space to think. When Colleen asks him to let her go home, he decides to only let her write a letter to her parents. Suddenly, Cameron yells in pain and falls because he's hurt his ankle. Colleen considers running away, but she freezes in fear. She only snaps out of it when Cameron calls her and she bandages the injury with a random towel. At home, Colleen cleans Cameron's wound, but Janice gets jealous and takes over. That night, Janice wonders if Cameron still loves her since it feels like he cares more about Colleen than his wife. Janice can tell Cameron wants her, so he reminds her that Colleen is her slave too and they could share her. As soon as Janice agrees, Cameron takes Colleen out of the box and starts getting dirty with her. Janice joins them after some hesitation, but Cameron only has eyes for Colleen, so Janice rushes to the bathroom to throw up. When Cameron checks on her, Janice insults him and says he broke his promise. An argument ensues and it only ends when Janice asks Cameron to never touch Colleen again. Almost 4 years after the abduction, Janice takes Colleen out of the box to feed her and let her go to the bathroom. At that moment, Amber sneaks out of her room and Colleen is surprised by how much she's grown because she hadn't seen her since she was a baby. Cameron immediately takes his daughter away and Janice closes the door while Colleen finally realizes how much time she's spent as a prisoner. Sometime later, the family goes to the lake for the weekend, but Colleen is left in the box. Her body is constantly rolling as she tries not to go crazy, and she imagines herself talking to a priest. When she asks why this is happening to her, he tells her that pain and suffering are inevitable in life. Her next hallucination is her telling her sister that God must have a reason for this to happen, but her sister is suddenly replaced by Janice telling her she's only here to take the pain. The next illusion makes Colleen think that the box is getting filled with water. She sees herself floating in the sea while staring at an angel who promises to protect her. This gives her the strength to kick the box until it breaks open. When the family returns, Cameron immediately discovers that the box is broken. He searches the house and finds Colleen in the bathroom with a Bible. She claims she had to leave the box because she was thirsty. Cameron quickly fixes the box and sends her back inside. Afterward, he circles the passage in the Bible that tells slaves to obey their masters and shows it to Janice. Since she hasn't let him do bondage with her lately, he wants to use Colleen again. When Janice asks if he'll get naughty with her, Cameron says yes and points out that the Bible allows men to have more than one wife. He thinks the only way to make their relationship work is by having his usual outlet, so Janice says yes. The next morning, Cameron takes Colleen out of the box and lets her talk to Amber. After Cameron leaves for work, Janice brings Colleen to the living room so they can read the Bible together. There's a story about two women who had to share a man and she thinks they can learn from it. Janice also asks Colleen not to call her madam anymore. Almost 6 years after the abduction, Colleen puts Amber to bed before joining Cameron to do the dirty. After they're done, Cameron says that Colleen could one day become his slave wife and have kids. Colleen doesn't think she can have a child with a man who doesn't trust her, and when he swears he does, she asks him to let her see her family. Cameron refuses, claiming that the company doesn't let him. Then Colleen asks when his taste for bondage and torture started. Cameron explains that when he was a kid, he was already drawing pictures of women tied up. Janice was the first one who let him try, but she's never been able to handle it well. Colleen wonders what he'd do if someone tried this with Amber, and Cameron says he'd kill them, so Colleen points out that's how her father must feel. An annoyed Cameron sends Colleen back to the box. Meanwhile, Janice takes Colleen to church with her, lets her do her hair, and allows her to take care of the garden. It seems they're growing closer, so Janice asks if Cameron spends time with her while she's at work. Colleen says she has to obey her master, causing Janice to get jealous again. One afternoon, Cameron orders Colleen to make dinner. However, Janice asks him to wait because they're finishing a game with Amber. Cameron drags Janice to their bedroom and punishes her for her attitude. When Amber asks why her mom is crying, Colleen plays hide and seek with her to distract her. Later, Colleen comforts Janice. 6 months later, Cameron tells Colleen that the company has approved a trip to visit her parents. However, she must pass an obedience test first to confirm she can be trusted. Cameron puts a gun in her mouth and asks her to pull the trigger. In tears, Colleen does so and is relieved to realize the gun is empty. When they make it to Colleen's childhood home, Cameron reminds her not to try anything or the company will hurt her family. They go inside and everyone is happy to see Colleen again. She introduces Cameron as Mike, but he doesn't stay. During lunch, the family shares stories and Colleen is shaken by how much she's missed. When she goes to the bathroom, her sister tells their parents that something isn't right. However, her dad asks her to stay calm because if Colleen is involved in a cult, they can't risk frightening her off. In the evening, Colleen promises she'll stay all weekend. After her parents go to bed, her sister tries to ask for the truth, but Colleen refuses to answer and goes to sleep too. The next day, the sister tries to talk to Colleen again. However, the moment is interrupted by Cameron's arrival. He was supposed to come tomorrow, but he claims his conference ended early and it's time for them to go home. Cameron also tells the family that he and Colleen are getting married soon. Her mother takes a few pictures and her dad asks for a phone number, but Cameron says they're in the process of moving. When they return home, Cameron gets naughty with Colleen and decides they should get married. Colleen asks about Janice and Cameron says she'll have to accept it eventually, which is overheard by Janice outside. Before Colleen can reply, Janice enters the house with lots of noise to distract them. The next morning, Janice packs her things and announces that she's leaving with Amber because there are too many people in her marriage. Cameron tries to stop her, but Janice threatens to go to the police and leaves with her daughter in a cab. Afterward, Colleen tries to comfort Cameron, who snaps and makes her undress while yelling at her. Then he drags her to the shed and forces her to stay in a hidden basement, taking away the ladder so she can't get out. It's raining when Cameron leaves, so water keeps leaking in and Colleen is freezing. Suddenly the hatch opens and Colleen is shocked to see Janice, who helps her out and tells her she should leave too. Colleen is still brainwashed and wants to stay, so Janice shares a story. Cameron used to take Janice to the woods to hang her up and have his twisted fun. A year before they met Colleen, they met another hitchhiker and kidnapped her too. However, she didn't stop screaming, so Cameron killed her. Since then, Janice hasn't been able to live with that sin. By the time Cameron returns, both women are gone. At the bus station, Janice tells Colleen that there never was a company. This finally breaks her, so Colleen takes the bus to finally go home. This is based on a true story. Cameron was sentenced to 104 years in prison, and Janice received immunity in exchange for testifying against her husband. She also confessed to the murder of the other girl, but the body was never found. Colleen's abduction lasted a little over 7 years and she attributes her survival to her faith. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.